Hello everybody, welcome to That's Football. The end for Manchester City is certainly in sight, but what will that end be? Only yesterday a report came out saying that the 115 will be heard in November and concluded this court case by the end of next season. Now, we did a video yesterday on what's going on in the transfer window, and I suppose in relation to Manchester City, there has been rumours for a while now that certain players may not be as open to joining Man City this summer as they were in the past because of this looming court case. Well, whatever's going to happen, the reality is this is going to be a huge season for Manchester City. In fact, one of the most predictable things is probably that they will win the league because they are so much better than everybody else. But at the end of next season, will they be celebrating a 7th Premier League title in 8 years and a 5th one in the row? Would it be 5 in a row, would it? I think it would be 5 in a row. Or will they be celebrating relegation down to God knows what level of football because they lose this court case? And I think that is something that looms large for Manchester City. Now, I'm sure they'll be quite happy in some sense that there'll be a line drawn over it and it will be the end. And there is always the prospect that they will get found not guilty with no case to answer. But it is shaping up to be a massive season. And if you thought last season was big with VAR, time added on, injury crises, remember this case is going to hit in November. Only 3 months into the new season, and will then transcend the second half of the season as we await judgment, which I'm sure will probably come out at the end of the season. So a massive, massive season for Manchester City. Many people fear, well, many people hope, many people think that Manchester City will be found guilty, that the case that the Premier League has is obviously very strong, that they've never wavered or backed down or offered any sort of, fine or, settlement out of court. It's always been about this court case and getting on with it. So the Premier League will feel they have a strong case. Manchester City obviously have the funds to throw absolutely everything at it. We've seen their all-star litigation team to fight against this. How's it going to go? How will it be played out? Public reporting on it, of course. This is a court case, so I don't think it will be a closed court. I think that, we'll probably be getting daily updates on what the evidence is, if that's how it's going to plan out. So we're in for a really big season, and specifically, I think all the way through this, I can't see a scenario where Man City aren't in a title race with their laundry being played out, or dirty laundry maybe, shown to the rest of the world, the rest of the footballing world. So look, really, really interesting. And I think as well, just going back to the transfer situation there, if you're a Man City player or a prospective Man City player and you're watching this, then, I don't think you're massively bothered if you're Erling Haaland or Kevin De Bruyne, because if Man City did shit hit the fan and they get relegated or whatever, there's not going to be a shortage of clubs coming in like vultures to take you good players. But if you're a player who's about to sign this summer, you'd have to be bearing it in mind. You'd certainly have to be putting it in your contract. And I wonder if any players have got it in their contract that if Man City get relegated, they're allowed to go for next to nothing. Because I don't think it will prevent Man City signing players this summer like a Danny Olmo or something. Because I think the contracts that those players would sign would certainly have some sort of release clause in it. But look, we've been waiting this for a long time. There isn't that much long to go now. There can always be twists and turns. But what we're looking at here is something really big. And we're looking at a defined story. We're looking at an outcome. And I think that's something that we haven't had. It's been going on for years and years. And within that time, City have won a treble. Within that time, Man City are winning multiple Premier League titles. And we need to get to a point where this is resolved. And of course, my stance has always been that there are a lot of charges, they are charged, and therefore the Premier League clearly think Man City have done something wrong. And I think that's always been the stance of a lot of people from the outside looking in. Now, Manchester City can find a way out of it, technically. The court of law may not find them guilty, but I think in the court of public opinion, they'll never be not guilty because, that's the way it is. If you look at the recent, and there's no comparison with this, but if you look at Mason Greenwood, who's just signed for Marseille, those allegations which were publicly shared. We all saw it, but it never hit a court case. And, you know, they're together with a child. And yet Mason Greenwood in the court of public opinion with some people will always be guilty, and you're not welcome at our club. So, you know, that's a very serious example. But Manchester City, in a more financial way, I think will always be perceived to be cheats by some people. So, yeah, very, very interesting. And as I said, the update was yesterday that this will be heard in November, which we already knew, but concluded by the end of the season. So fasten your seatbelts, because for the next season, this is going to be overhanging everything that's going on. And look, I think there is so much money swashing around here. The Premier League, Manchester City. And I think ultimately as well, what do you think the punishment would be? Because there are people out there that say that even if Man City got found guilty, there might be some sort of agreement where, you know, there's a points deduction or something like that. And as fans, we certainly won't be thrown into it. But I think for me, you'd have to see what they've been found guilty of and how much of an advantage that's been over a period of time. Because if what they've done has allowed them to circumnavigate what everyone else has done, and we know how successful they've been, then you can't just... What I'm trying to say is if they've won titles because of what they did, you can't just give them a one-season points total deduction. You know, there's multiple Premier League titles that Manchester City have won, and if that's directly because of this, then there needs to be multiple year punishment. And the only way to do that is to relegate them down to a league like they did with Rangers, where it will take them 2 or 3 years to get back. And I think that would be the only fair way of doing it. But would the Premier League want to do that? Would they think that would damage their brand? Would that force Man City to try and start a Super League? There's just so, and this is what I mean, the enormity of what could happen would be massive. But of course, there is also, as I've said before, the possibility that nothing happens, that they don't, well, not nothing, that they don't get found guilty at all. It's going to be a massively intriguing season, and overarching that, we're going to have Man City probably winning a title again. I mean, I said at the end of last season, they'll win the title for me, because I look at everybody else, and Liverpool without Klopp, Man United are miles off, even though they might be rebuilding. Newcastle are never going to touch them. Villa, Spurs, no. The only team that can touch them is Arsenal. And can Arsenal keep doing what they're doing? I still think Arsenal do need a little bit more in their squad that they haven't got at the moment. So, yeah, Man City going to court in November with a result by the end of the season, probably holding up another Premier League title at the same time. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting. Get your comments in below. What would you do with Manchester City if they're found guilty? And what do you think the outcome will be? Get your comments in, smash a like and subscribe. I'll speak to you on the next one.